Hi, I'm Anna Rutherford. I'm a junior sociology major, and I'll be sharing my research on student engagement and collaborative learning practices during the Trump era. Foremost, as emphasized in the literature, interaction with peers is integral to successful and consistent student engagement in higher education. The Trump administration is responsible for the deregulation of education and the loosening of several significant federal policies that impact racial minorities, sexual and gender minorities, individuals with disabilities, immigrants, and victims of sexual assault. The shifting of educational foci accounts to study the impact of such policies on student engagement, particularly in collaborative learning during the Trump administration. That being said, the purpose of this research is to explore how collaborative learning is practiced among university students and their willingness to interact with diverse groups by examining the National Survey of Student Engagement's variables under the category of learning with peers. This research specifically poses the question, what are the main demographic predictors for collaborative learning, both in practice and willingness to engage with other groups among undergraduate students in the Appalachian region? Key rationale in studying this research is to identify factors of significance that would provide some impetus in developing programs that could aid post-secondary students in learning and engaging better, despite the challenges emanating from transitions in educational policies. In reviewing the prior literature, it is posited that student engagement is primarily motivated by the needs for mastery, understanding, self-expression, and involvement with others, which is represented by the acronym SCORE. In accordance with SCORE, academic engagement assists in successfully navigating adverse life experiences. Collaborative learning, which is the joint symmetrical engagement of participants toward shared learning and problem-solving goals, significantly strengthens student motivation, engagement, persistence, and academic performance through a variety of methods. While exposure to collaborative learning techniques affects all students in a similar manner, meaning positively, results tend to be more significant among those with traditionally less legitimate or accessible opportunities, as well as those with less social capital. This includes women, racial and ethnic minorities, and those with lower academic capacities. In maximizing the benefits of collaborative learning, diversity of opinion as well as diversity of the collaborating group is absolutely essential. In regards to methodology, data from this research comes from a cross-sectional survey collected by the National Survey of Student Engagement, also known as NSSE, during the spring semester of 2018. My independent variables are sex, race, sexual orientation, disability, and international status, while the intervening variables are class standing, enrollment status, and housing. The dependent variables are the level of engagement in collaborative learning and discussion with diverse others, which are both indicators of the NSSE's learning with peers. This research utilizes multiple linear regression analyses to compare differences in student engagement by various demographic indicators. Foremost, in Table 2, it shows that women, sexual minorities, seniors in class standing, full-time enrolled students, and students who live on campus are more likely to be engaged in collaborative learning practices of all kinds. The gender differences and relational tendencies are likely to be attributed to the emphasis of collectivism among women and the resulting level of increased social capital. On the other hand, sexual minorities, seniors, full-time students, and students who live on campus are likely to be engaged due to their social location and their proximity to other students. Table 3, on the other hand, shows the intentionality of students in discussing with others, diverse others. The table indicates that seniors are more willing to interact with racial minorities, while sexual minorities are more willing to interact with those of different religious beliefs. Seniors and sexual minorities' willingness to discuss with diverse others is a reflection of student maturity due to their overall exposure to and contact with other groups during their university tenure. In considering the context of the sample and experiences of discrimination and/or exclusion, the differences in strategies of collaborative learning can also be attributed to student engagement as a coping mechanism, form of resiliency from policies that likely affect them, whether directly or indirectly. This is consistent with the SCORE theory of student engagement, as pedagogical and environmental conditions specific to the time require not only a greater need for peer networks, but also a greater potential for impact on holistic student well-being and educational outcomes. It is interesting that only a few select key demographic variables were statistically significant predictors of engagement in collaborative learning, as transitions in educational policies in theory would affect a much larger demographic scope. While there are many possible explanations for this outcome, I propose that the double marginalization of women and sexual minorities at the institutional level exacerbates existing needs for peer networks and academic engagement among these demographics. In responding to these findings for policies necessary for post-secondary institutions and classroom instructors to mitigate these discrepancies in student engagement by devising strategies that will incorporate less engaged groups, by promoting ways to ask for help and providing more opportunities for explaining course materials, studying and collaborating on projects with students of different races, ethnicities, economic backgrounds, religious beliefs, and political views. Lastly, I will acknowledge that this sample is limited in its generalizability as it comes from one university in the Appalachian region. That being said, in the future, I plan to extend my sample to represent more universities and thus improve its accuracy and applicability. Additionally, in the future, I would like to focus on this research within the context of the coronavirus pandemic, particularly focusing on the widespread transition to hybrid and high-flex learning environments. Collectively, my current findings and the future research I will conduct will allow for the determination and application of better pedagogical practices in times of both normalcy and disruption as a means of providing more equitable and sustainable educational opportunities for all students. This concludes my presentation, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you.